You know, it's one of the most underrated westerns of the 1970s, and definitely weird to say underrated, despite the fact John Wayne played the lead in it. Now, John Wayne in this movie basically would call it a family affair. Not only members of his own family were his co-stars, including his kids. The great Maureen O'Hara, who he performed with several times in the past, was also in the cast. So today we're going to be talking about the American Technicolor Western, Big Jake. This was the final film for George Sherman, a directing career of more than 30 years. It was a big box office hit with $7.5 million in the U.S. in 1971. And the supporting cast was a who's who of, again, family members and Western stars, including Patrick Wayne, Christopher Mitchum, Glenn Corbett, Jim Davis, John Agar, Harry Carey Jr., and Hank Worden. Now, in the plot, in 1909, near the Mexico-U.S. border, Martha McCannels runs a massive ranch with the help of her sons Jeff, Michael, and James. The Fane gang, the Fane brothers, the Devries brothers, John Goodfellow, Kid Duffy, Reed O'Brien, Pop Dawson, and Trooper, attacks the ranch, brutally slaying many members of the staff. Jeff kills the Devries brothers but is badly wounded. His son Jacob, Little Jake McCannels, is kidnapped before the gang flees to Mexico, leaving behind a ransom note for $1 million, which would be $306 million today. Martha plays the ransom in Strongbox, and delegates from both the U.S. Army and the Texas Rangers offer to take the box for her. Martha decides instead to send for her strange husband Jacob, Big Jake McCandles, who wanders the West as a gunfighter with his black Ralph Collie mix, simply named Dog. Jake arrives in a confirmed secret about what to do with the box. Now Michael McCandles, the youngest son, arrives on a motorcycle with news he has found the kidnappers. Martha decides to allow him and his older brother James to set off with the Rangers and REO roundabouts to try to overtake the kidnappers. Jake disapproves and sets off with the box, a mule, pack horses, and his elderly Apache friend Sam Sharpnose, preferring to do things the old-fashioned way. The kidnappers ambush the Rangers, killing a trio of them and putting the cars out of commission. Jake allows his two sons to accompany him, and relations became strained between Jake and James after the former's long absence from home. But Michael is delighted to see his father again and impresses him with his skill as a sharpshooter. However, Jake is put off by Michael's more modern and genteel ways. Now, John Fane, pretending to be only a messenger boy, intercepts the group and warns them bandits are now after the box. He tells them the gang will kill Little Jake of Big Jake, who pretends to be a hired hand during the encounter, doesn't do things exactly the gang's way. He gives them further instructions on where the exchange will take place, in the town of Escondero. On arrival, the family checks at a hotel and lays a trap for the bandits, killing them. During the attack, the strongbox is accidentally opened, revealing the money has been replaced by newspaper clippings. Both boys believe Jake has stolen the money, until Jake reminds them of the people that were killed by the Fane gang, and that their brother Jeff has also been badly and possibly fatally wounded. He tells them that he and Martha, refusing to pay for that, took the money out. Now Pop Dawson arrives with a message to meet the gang with the money in an old fort outside town. He tells them the rules. They are to ride together and not try anything until after the gang has left with the money, because their own sharpshooter Duffy is heading far away with a rifle trained on Little Jake at all times. Big Jake convinced Dawson that Michael was killed by the bandits, so he, James, Sam, and Dog follow Dawson to the fort. Now Fane reveals he is the ringleader and reiterates Dawson's threats. Jake throws the key to Fane while Michael gets into position atop the fort with his rifle. Just as Fane opens the chest and realizes the deception, Big Jake opens fire and kills Fane's brother Will, who was holding Little Jake. Michael takes out Duffy, Sam kills Trooper, and James shoots down both Dawson and O'Brien, but breaks his hand. Now Fane and Big Jake eventually find themselves both wounded and in a stalemate from behind their respective hiding places, and Big Jake tells his grandson to run to James. Goodfellow slashes Sam and Dog with his machete, killing the Indian, and pursues Little Jake into a stable where Dog attacks Goodfellow a second time and is killed. Big Jake, out of bullets, makes a run for it and kills Goodfellow with a pitchfork in the stables. Now, John Fane corners the weaponless grandfather and grandson outside the stable, but Michael, having come down for his purse, shoots Fane from behind. As Fane dies, Big Jake finally reveals his true identity to him, and to Little Jake, who has never met his grandfather before. Reunited at last, The family acknowledge their renewed bond and prepares to go home. A very quick 2 hours and a very strong movie in all the shapes. Now again, George Sherman directed with a screenplay by Harry and R.M. Fink, produced by Michael Wayne, starring again John Wayne, Richard Boone, Maureen O'Hara, Patrick Wayne, Christopher Mitchum, Bruce Cabot, narrated by George Fenneman, cinematography by William L. Cloutier, edited by Harry Gerstart. Again, Elmer Bernstein as the movie, a John Wayne favorite, and Wayne's production company, Batjack Productions, produced it. Distributed by Cinema Center Films through National General Pictures, released in May of '71, and again, $7.5 million at the rentals. Now, the other supporting actors, very interesting: Bruce Cabot, Bobby Vinton of all people, Glenn Corbett, Jim Davis of Dallas fame, John Agar, Harry Carey Jr., Dean Smith, Ethan Wayne, and of course Chuck Robertson as the Texas Ranger. Now, written initially as The $1 Million Kidnapping, which was used as a shooting title, it was filmed from early October to early December 1970 in the Mexican states of Durango and Zacatecas, including scenes shot at the El Saltito waterfall and the Sierra de Oroganos National Park. Now, John Wayne's son Patrick portrays James McCandless, Robert Mitchum's son Christopher portrays Michael McCandless, and Wayne's youngest son Ethan portrays little Jake. Now, Howard Thompson of the New York Times enjoyed the movie and encouraged theatergoers to stick it out until the exciting climax, to which the rest of the film was a long prelude that simply jogs along very teasingly on a rescue trail, with the star being his laconic self, plus conventional spurts of violence, likewise the saddle humor. Gene Siskel gave it a 2 out of 4. Now, Arthur D. Murphy of Variety wrote that the film had an above-average script, plus excellent direction by George Marshall and superior photographer by William Clothier on Mexican locations. Now, Kevin Thomas at the LA Times said something very interesting. To say that Big Jake is a typical John Wayne Western is pretty much to say it all. His fans should be well satisfied with his tried and true combination of action and comedy. Big Jake is scarcely distinguished by, but it's certainly enjoyable, and Gary Arnold of the Washington Post called it a rather insufferable sort of typical Wayne vehicle with an undercurrent of vindictiveness that spoils the ostensible humor. It's obvious that young actors are needed to appeal to younger viewers and to abhor the kinds of physical action that require youth and dexterity, and that Wayne is just too visibly massive and slow to accomplish these days. But they're treated almost exclusively as stooges. There's no good reason why the young leads in a Wayne picture shouldn't be allowed to function with at least as much importance as dignity as Ricky Nelson in Rio Bravo, or the young actor who played opposite Joel McRae and Randolph Scott in Ride the High Country, or better yet, Monty Clift in Red River. Now, Alan Isles of the Monthly Film Bulletin declared, another genial celebration of Big John's ability to carry a film practically single-handedly. Although supported by a group of dependables who usually appear in these films, as well as a good proportion of his family, it is the Wayne personality, carefully catered for by the script, that accounts for most of the pleasure. Now, when I first saw Big Jake on TV many years ago, I didn't really appreciate the cinematography, but it was a pan and scan, but I would give 2.5 out of 4. It's quite, like I said, it's a quite strong John Wayne vehicle. It's like a mid-1960s movie in the midst of the early 1970s. So you would never think the hippie generation would even exist if you watch Big Jake, because it's a movie of its time. So again, ladies and gentlemen, that's our latest in our John Wayne podcast. If you like what we're doing here with our reviews and assessment of some of these movies of the 60s and 70s, let us know what a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Thanks for listening, and requests are always appreciated and always highly considered. Have a good one. Bye.